Welcome to He Believes, She Feels, episode 6. I have the lovely Christy Avis here, owner and founder of the Aligned Ascension. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I can't with your energy. I'm too excited right now, too, with you.
I know this is going to be such a good conversation. I'm so excited to dive
It
in.
is. It is. I feel like it's overdue, even though it's been a short time.
I know it's so funny because I feel like our paths definitely crossed in a way where we're ready to speak about deeper things and go deeper into like evolution of consciousness and all of these pieces. Like I'm really excited.
I am too. But before we get to that one, why don't you introduce yourself and how you got here and what you're doing and what you're doing and talk to the audience a little bit.
Amazing. So, everybody, I'm Christy Avis. I am a human design, energetics, and business strategy coach. And a lot of what I do is through the lens of human design. And human design is a really, really cool system that allows us to understand like how we interact with the world. It allows us to understand ourselves. It allows us to understand our conditioning. And it really, at its base essence, it's how we align with our path of least resistance and kind of our self theme, the way we're meant to feel in this life that makes us feel the most fulfilled. So it's a really, really cool system. And I use that to help people grow their businesses and do a lot of work with energetics as well. So that is like my passion, and that's why I'm here.
Nice, nice. Yeah. I feel like I'm going through exactly that little I want to dive more into that because the path of least resistance, that sticks out that little comment there. Because what we usually do is get in our own way and resist a lot of things. So how do you work with that? How do we work with that energy and knowing what our human design looks like?
Yeah, so human design is really, really cool because you can go to like, there's a lot of free sites where you can go and look up your human design. And it's based on your birth location and birth time. And human design is really cool because there's four different types in human design. And what you can do is you can start to understand what type you are and learn how to interact with the world. And so it really gives you this basis. And I love human design because it's a really cool system because it's not just based on like how you feel today and you take a quiz. It's not like that. It's based off of birth chart information, but then it also can take into account when you start to look at your chart, it takes into account your conditioning, which conditioning is really special because two people with the exact same chart can be conditioned in different ways, right? And so you get to start to understand when you look at your chart, like, what is my human design type? What is my strategy? What is my authority? And when you start to dive into those different pieces, you also start to see how you were conditioned by parents, by society, by teachers, by bosses, by friends in opposition of your design. You start to see the pieces of you that were maybe pushing harder than you should, or kind of in a misaligned space, or wanting to be seen and recognized without seeing and recognizing yourself. So it gives you this really beautiful basis for like, oh, where have I been operating in misalignment and how can I align in a deeper way? And also call in more, because that's what a lot of people like love to use human design for, is to not only align to what's their highest frequency expressions and see where they're in low frequency expressions, but also to create, right? To create abundance, to call in invitations, to call in the aligned opportunities, to really create what's going to fulfill them. So it's really cool because it takes in both of these sides.
Yeah, I mean, let's dive deeper into that because as a prime example, when I learned about mine, I learned that like with my projector and then my underlining bitterness, and then I was trying to force things and trying to be seen and into industry that I had to just kind of just force it instead of waiting for the invitation, waiting for everything else. And I remember getting bitter because I wasn't being seen or recognized for the aspects of what I wanted to do. And then that transpired into like a debt and then transpired into so many other things because I wasn't fulfilling exactly what my role was in the part of that human design until I
Yeah.
discovered this and how it
Yep.
actually worked.
Exactly. And projectors are so fascinating. And it's so cool because now that you know your human design type, it gave you this ability to see like, oh, this is what's meant for me. This is where I'm misaligned and this is where I can get aligned. And it's so cool because there are these four different types. And so we have our projectors, we have our manifestors, we have our reflectors, and then we have our generators. And Generators actually breaks down into a subcategory of manifesting generators. And so within these 4 types, you actually learn like what your self theme is, which your self theme is really what you're meant to feel when you're in alignment, right? And so projectors, you are meant to feel success, right? If you're a gen or a mani gen, you're meant to feel this satisfaction. If you're a reflector, you're meant to feel surprise. If you're, which one did I leave out? Manifester, you're meant to feel this peace, right? And so when you understand that, all of the sudden you get to look at all of the areas where you're actually in misalignment or where you're pushing or forcing or not operating in alignment to your design. And your self theme, when you feel it and when you're emulating that frequency, that's when you're in the highest level of alignment. And when you're in your not self theme, which that's going to be like this bitterness, this frustration, this anger, this disappointment, when those are coming up related to your human design type, I see the not self theme as a gift because it's kind of this blaring alarm of saying, hey, we're off the path. Hey, there's something here that's misaligned. And so when you understand that, you get to see the gift and the misalignment because it shows you, oh, this thing actually isn't aligned for me, or the way I'm viewing this thing isn't aligned for me, or the way I'm approaching this energetically isn't in the highest frequency for me.
Yeah. And another thing I learned from you on your podcast, which is amazing, everybody should hear into it, was
Thank
more of
you.
like the waiting period too. So like knowing your human design, and then all of a sudden I was getting frustrated because I was doing nothing necessarily, but not doing nothing, but just building and doing all this. And then all of a sudden you talked about this, and I think you interviewed, I forgot what her name was, that she went from like zero to like $100,000 month or whatever it was at the time, and she used that the building phase, structure phase until the opportunity came, and then those opportunities stacked against each other.
Totally. Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. And that's something that I teach in different ways to different human design types, but specifically for projectors, it's really about this evidence stacking because energetics is so important for you to feel solid on before the 3D reality reflects that solidity back to you. And so when you are actually not in a space of like, the whole wait for an invitation that is the strategy for projectors, it's not this energy of like sitting in a corner and hoping somebody comes to you. It's building within your passion and creating within your passion. And then all of a sudden, you aren't just seen, but you're recognized. And that's when people start to come into your reality and they're like, hey, can you help me? Hey, how do I pay you? Hey, what's your specialty? Hey, I can tell that you're meant to help me. Like, it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean that is the part that I think a lot of people struggle with, right? And then
Yeah.
we have the other categories like I'm a 4/6, so that's opportunistic role models. I know some big people in the world, like a David Beckham, is an opportunistic role model when they take their network and they align themselves and take those opportunities within itself, right?
Yep, 100%. And that's so cool. And I'm so glad you're mentioning this because we all have our unique profiles as well within human design, which that really is our personality and it's our unique flair in our design. But it's also, I really see the profile as where we tap into our magnetism, right? And so within you specifically being a 4/6, you're somebody who, when you're not in a space of overgiving or jadedness, because those are kind of the low frequencies of the 4 line. When you're not in those spaces, people really come to you and you connect people and you see the connections that people need to make for everybody's good, right? It's kind of like a rising tide raises all ships. That's very much you. And then the 6 line is very much this new age leadership. It's this vision that kind of takes us out of our current paradigms, right? And so the 6 line has this ability to see, like, hey, where we're going really far off into the distance. A lot of 6 lines that I talk to, you guys are the people who have lived multiple lives within this lifetime. Like the stories that you guys have and the stories that you share, it's like you lived that, you went through that, and then that, and then that. That's very much the 6 line. And so in the highest frequency expression, you're somebody who creates a lot of safety and a lot of power for people to step into this new vision. In the low frequency expression, this is something that's so cool about every piece of human design. There's high frequencies and low frequencies. In the low frequency expression, the 6 line is like, why does nobody get it? Why are we not seeing this? Like, why does nobody understand my vision? And you really are a benchmark for a vision. And so you have to believe in that vision so deeply. And so it's really cool because even when people are looking up your human design, look at your profile because that's going to give you a lot of information as to where you're in high frequencies or low frequencies. And if you're aligned to the magnetism, aligned to that personality, and really in the highest frequency expression where you're attracting people in and helping them in the way that's most fulfilling for you.
Yeah. And how do you connect that all together when you teach your classes and everything else? Because I know it's all connected, like your astrology, obviously with the human design, I've done my soul contract. Everything is connected. Everything is intertwined in raising the level of awareness and consciousness and everything else. But how do you teach that to somebody? How do you kind of like incorporate that and show them like tools and tips to actually encompass that?
Totally. And this is such a good question because human design, it truly is like it's a rabbit hole, right? And so when you start getting into it, it combines astrology, it combines the Chinese I Ching, it's got the chakra system, it's got pieces of quantum physics, it's got the Kabbalah, it's got so many different aspects and you can start to dive really deep. And so what I tell people is to actually don't go down the rabbit hole and to actually start with embodiment and integration because what happens is, and I'm a 5-1. And so the one line, it loves to dive into information, but the only way that human design actually changes people's lives is if they embody. So the places where I have people start is I have them start with their human design type, their strategy, and their authority. Because what's really cool is you get to intellectually dive into more than that. But when you start to embody your human design type, your strategy, and your authority, all of a sudden, that's the benchmark for all alignment is your embodiment there. And it's really cool because even if you don't know what your conscious or unconscious sun is, or you don't know like, oh, I'm defined here or I'm undefined here, what you will start to find is that when you follow your strategy, authority, and type, you're actually falling into alignment with other pieces in your chart just naturally. I find that when people try to absorb all of it at once, they will intellectualize, and so they'll skip the embodiment piece of actually bringing it into their being. And I was guilty of this. When I first started learning about human design, I didn't embody and I just intellectualized, and it didn't change anything for me. But when people actually embody and go back to type, strategy, and authority, then they can dive in more and integrate more without getting stuck in the mind. Because that's really what, at the essence, human design is about, is it's about trusting our inner knowing as opposed to trusting the conditioning and logic of the mind and the conditioning of society, which is so cool because it allows us to pave our own path. It allows us to follow what's deeply aligned for us instead of fitting into the cog of what society says we should be, or what our parents said we should be, or what our families think we should be. It takes us out of that conditioning and goes, what do I want? And how do I create it? It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's pioneering, right? That's what we're here to do is pioneer a new road for the new earth and everything else that's splitting about and creating this new source of like happiness and everything else. It's interesting you say that because that has a lot to do with fear too, right? To embody that because it takes a lot of courage to embody. I know I've gone through so much fear to actually embody and trust the unknown and trust the process and everything. How did you go get over that, and how did you like really just go through that?
I love this question. So yes, and it's so funny because a lot of times when people hear about human design, a lot of people find the world of human design from this energy of like, how do I make what I want to come true? How do I create in a way that's aligned? And for me, that's initially why I got into human design because I was working as a virtual assistant and it was misaligned. Like I was really in a place of forcing and hustle and pressure. And then I found out human design and I learned everything there is to know. And I dove deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I realized like nothing was changing and I was still in force and hustle and pressure. And that's when I learned to embody it. And even though human design will lead you on the path of least resistance and you will decondition and you will get into a space where you're aligned with your self-theme and your highest soul path, sometimes there is a crumbling that happens because what our ego does, the piece of us that wants to self-protect, is it says that a state of sameness is safe. And so it doesn't actually want you to expand. Even though you want to expand, your ego kind of self protects. And especially when you're going outside of the realm of what your conditioned mind and your ego thinks is safe, it's actually scary and it's actually hard, right? And so what I realized is I was like, okay, human design isn't changing my life, even though I'm learning all of the facts. So I was like, what happens when I embody this? So I'm a Manny Gen. So I actually had to start embodying it. And when I started embodying it, I had to say no to things that I thought I should do. I had to say no to misaligned clients and misaligned money. And it was really scary, right? Because for me, I knew I was transitioning into being more of a coaching person as opposed to a virtual assistant. And I had to set boundaries. I had to let clients go. Like my human design eventually led me to leaving an engagement that I was engaged to somebody and it wasn't actually aligned. And so I had to leave that. I had to move. Like there have been so many uncomfortable moments that have led me on the path of alignment. And it's been very interesting because on the back end of that fear, when I follow my alignment, on the back end of the fear that came with making those decisions and following my truth, there was always magic, like absolute magic on the other side. But my conditioned mind, the logical piece of me, could not see that magic until I allowed myself to trust and I allowed myself to go for it. And that's what most people struggle with when it comes to human design is they love the facts, they love the information because when most people come into the world of human design, they're looking at it from the energy of a permission slip, which is amazing, right? We have to use it as a permission slip when we first find out, like, oh, I was told to operate in a way that's misaligned for me. So we look at it from this energy of a permission slip. But then all of the sudden, when you really start to embody your human design, it moves from being the energy of a permission slip into an initiation into your alignment. That's when it gets tricky because you have to be courageous.
Yeah, I mean, you're first of all, you're a beautiful soul for keep going into your fears and leaning. That's why we resonate a lot, and that's why listen, I got chills because it takes a certain time. This path is not an easy path. This path people think are just like, oh, I'm gonna go with it spiritually and be like, oh, namaste. No. It takes a lot of shadow work. It takes a lot of courage, and people are
Truly.
gonna look at you. We talked about it before we jumped on the craziness, right? And I asked
Yes.
myself today, I'm like, am I crazy? But then that's where you know you're going on the right path, right?
I've asked myself the same thing probably today as well.
You see?
Like, am I crazy? Because when you stop following the conditioned path for you, it's not going to make sense to your logical mind. And it's definitely not going to make sense to the people around you.
Yeah. And it's all divine timing and all these choices we've made in life. And you're a living proof of embodying your human design. I mean, I think I looked at your post the other day. What in a couple years you've made over like $1 million or something like that, moving to Costa Rica, doing all this, right? Like
I
you're literally
am.
proof of this.
I am proof of it. And it's so crazy because I think back to a version of me 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 at this point, time's flying, but that was the version of me who was hopping from job to job every year, who could barely afford groceries, who was always having some sort of piece of me that had barely just enough to survive, was in deep misalignment. Like, it's crazy how much my life has changed from this work. And there are so many moments that are so beautiful and they're just like, holy crap, we're doing this. But then there's a lot of moments where I'm like, this is uncomfortable. This is an edge. This is an expansion. And that's something I think that's really important for people to understand is like, when you start to follow your human design, you're going to have something called an ego backlash, where your ego wants to keep you in a state of what's normal or what everybody else does. And so on oftentimes when I see a lot of doubt come up in people or a lot of fear or a lot of, oh my gosh, am I actually doing this? That's your moment to go, yes, I am, and to walk with the fear instead of letting the fear be the ultimate truth, because those are the people who will continuously have the courageousness to align to their design. Because one of the things, and this is kind of a little bit funny of me to think, but I thought once I aligned to my human design, everything was smooth sailing from there. But it initiates you continuously into deeper levels of alignment. And that's been true for me, regardless of how much money I make or how the business runs and how I think it should run or where I think I should live or how I think I should be. It will continually initiate me into deeper levels of alignment where there's so much fulfillment. But first, there's courage.
Yeah. I mean, as a collective, I think because we are the warriors, the first kind of warriors, right? I know the divine feminine has been working at this for a while, and as the masculine, we haven't had a lot of masculine work on this for a good period of time. But it takes, I think we're all, I know a couple projectors, I know multiple projectors, a reflector, and we're all going through the same struggle, same embodying it, the fear, the ego, all of this. And I just feel like your message is important to realize this because you're changing a lot of people's lives.
Totally. And it's so powerful and it's so important because human design really does support those individual missions of the feminine awakening or the masculine awakening or getting into our divine feminine or getting into our divine masculine. And here is the thing, and this is just one of those truths that society doesn't want a bunch of people following their design, right? Because it is going to incite this massive amount of change and upheaval of the old system. So I really do believe that people who choose to look at their design and embody their design, like we are warriors because it's not like most people were raised in the energy of their parents knowing their design and
Yeah.
supporting their design. Like we all have a lot of conditioning that we should do this or we have to do this or we have to work really hard in order for things to work or we have to fit into these boxes. And the people following their human design truly are the box breakers. That's what I believe.
Yeah. I mean, that's beautiful said. Like I thought about, I never made a choice into doing a lot of things that now I wasn't that I've done in past in my life because the conditioning of my parents or my mother and what she was taught when she came here. And then now knowing this, I can imagine how many generations, because there is a transfer of power. There is a transfer of wealth. There's a transfer of everything going on right now in a separation, right? Obviously, you can see everything that's been on the news and all as it continues to go on. And from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, either even as a projector part, comes with a lot of success and power and kind of pioneer and energy to lead the people because that's what we're here for is to lead in wisdom and people come to us for that wisdom, not necessarily like a manifestor generator or a generator. It's a little bit different, right?
Yes, 100%. So I'll quickly explain these roles and how the projector fits into that because I believe that all of our roles are super important and super different. And so a lot of generators and manifesting generators, the low conditioning that we're in right now is being co-opted by other people's dreams and motives. So a lot of gens and mani gens, they have the energy to go, but they're going on things that they don't love. They're doing things that they don't really enjoy that light them up. They're being co opted by what other people say they should do, right? And so, in the highest frequency expression, they're going to be the people who are actually following what they love and they're building for themselves and for others, not just building for others, because that's why we have such a pandemic of burnout in all human design types, but gens and mani gens, it's because of the co-opting of energy, right? And so we also have reflectors, which that's 1% of society. And reflectors, they're really the oracle. They're the seer. They're the ones who are seeing everything on an individual, societal, and collective level. And so they're really reflecting back to us where we're stuck, where we're not evolving, what we need to see. And so in the low frequency, reflectors are very disappointed. They're disappointed with society, they're disappointed with individuals, and they feel kind of jaded, right? It's kind of this energy of here's what's possible. Why are we not rising to the standard? But the aligned reflector, they're somebody who sees the capacity of individuals. They see the capacity of society. They see the capacity of the collective, and they reflect back to us that capacity and how we can get there. And then we have manifestors, which these are the people who have really specific and unique downloads of what to create. They have a lot of creation energy and a lot of initiating energy where they get a vision for something and they go and create it. And they create it for themselves, and it really benefits the rest of society. Jaded manifestors are the people who are like, I can't create what I want to create. Nobody sees me. Nobody gets my vision. And so they feel very angry and they feel like this energy of like, nobody gets it. Nobody understands. Nobody sees my vision. But the aligned manifester is the one who keeps the vision as the thing that's guiding them, as the thing that's leading them. And they bring people along and they're like, hey, I have this vision. Hey, let's create this. And so they bring a lot of energy together to ensure these visions. And it's really cool because what projectors do is you guide all of these people. And it's really cool because what the projector does is you have this very penetrating aura, which means you can see what needs to happen for somebody to align, whether that's the manifester tuning into their vision, or the Gen and Mani Gen following what lights them up, or the reflector tuning into what's good for them, or vice versa, right? Like there's a lot of serving on both sides energy, but the projector really does have this guiding energy where you see things that other people can't see. You see where we need to go and also where we're stuck or what we need to do in order to get there. And it's cool because sometimes you see this better than the individual or group of people or society that you're helping, because sometimes they don't know where they're going and you can see that. And so the low frequency expression of the projector actually doesn't see themselves or believe in their ability to do this. And so there's a lot of comparison and there's a lot of like, oh, I feel second best. Oh, I can't keep up. Oh, I'm not being seen. So that must mean my guidance isn't valuable. But the high frequency projector is like, I see my capacity to help people, to have this penetrating aura, to see exactly where people need to go, exactly what they need to do to transform their lives and enact their vision and experience their deepest alignment. So that's really how this ecosystem of human design works.
Yeah, I know one reflector. She's rare. And I talked to her for like a little bit of time, and she's like, "Oh, you're doing with this, and this." I'm like, "Yep, yep. Thank you, reflector." Um,
Yep.
and it's funny the projector aspect of it because I talked to somebody yesterday that I met over at Instagram, and literally she was like stuck. She was like, "I don't know where to go. This." Literally took me 2 seconds, and I'm like, "Well, it seems like you're working on this, and this. You should." She goes, "Oh, you're right," and then pushed her forward. Like it's exactly that. What my purpose is the lighthouse. You shine the light where it needs to be lit for them to work on themselves to a group of people and vice versa.
It's exactly that. And it's so cool because it's not something you're like trying to do or forcing to do. It's something that's naturally a part of you that is like who you are, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and it aligns perfectly to my Scorpio self and everything else because I alchemize it and I can literally break somebody down, reverse break them down, see what they're working with, put that piece back together as they're talking within 5 seconds and be like, okay, but what about this? And they're like,
Yes.
what?
Yes, and it's so cool. And it's so cool the correlation between like everything that's happening within your chart as well as the Scorpio energy, because it is kind of this extra layer of let's dive into the shadow. Let's alchemize what's happening underneath the scenes. Let's look at the subconscious and then let's bring it back together for the highest level of your alignment, because it's just true that we're going to have to look at the parts of ourselves that are misaligned in order to create more alignment.
Yeah, because let's get into that because it's like I think of it as muscle memory, right? Like you work out every day, you get bigger muscles, you get fit, you get healthier. It's the same thing when it comes to energy work, when it comes to alchemizing. So I practice that on a daily basis to the point now I feel like I can literally break somebody down in like a couple seconds. And I'm always on points like get out of my head or stop talking. Like, how do you know this? How do you know that? I'm like, I mean, it's easy. It comes to me easily.
Totally. That's so cool because it shows that the more that you align, the quicker things move for you, right? And so the more you recognize your own strengths within your design, and this is true for every human design type, the more you're going to attract that alignment because you're working through less resistance. And so when I talk about resistance, what I kind of mean is it's like these energetic densities that exist in the aura, which those are pieces of misalignment or those are pieces of conditioning. And when we have all of this misalignment and conditioning in our aura, like we actually have to struggle more because we're working with all of this fear and we're working with all of this shoulds and have tos and force and pressure. And so the more that you can decondition these pieces, get back into alignment, the faster you serve, the faster you create abundance, the faster you manifest, the easier that your life feels.
Yeah, because let's be honest. this road takes a lot of work, right? We're talking about subconscious, right? Like it's not like you look up your human design. Oh, like I'm a manifestor generator. Okay, let's start working on this. Like, no, if you haven't done the work, it's like the car's not gonna run. You're not gonna go anywhere.
Totally. I completely agree. And it's so funny because I feel like right now there's this conditioning in society that's like the quick fix or the
Yeah.
magic pill, right? And that's one of the things that I actually have to tell people who come into my world is it's like, yes, this shifting one thing can completely change your life. And also, this is a commitment, right? Like the energy of changing our subconscious and changing our neural pathways, that happens in two ways: a significant life altering event or practice, right? And usually, significant life altering events, yes, they can happen in the positive, and I've experienced that in my life, but usually it comes through practice and it comes through the awareness of, ooh, what part of me is saying yes to this? Is this the aligned part of me, or is this the people pleasing, or the fear of conflict, or the part of me that thinks I should or I have to, right? And that moment to moment readjustment into tuning into your authority, tuning into what's right for you, and moving with it. That's the compounding into massive alignment, and it does take practice, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be obsessed about it, right? You posted this the other day, and I know we talked about this, which was like the best post, and you literally said it changed your life. Was the you can have an amazing plan, but if you don't have the obsession and the determination or knowing that it's going to happen for you, your plan means nothing.
Exactly. And that's so related to human design because what does that conditioned part of us want to do? It wants to think its way through. It wants to know every step of how we're going to get there. It wants to self protect. It wants to just map everything out because it's looking for solidity. But when we are doubting if it's going to work and then we're moving from the conditioned logical mind, we're not actually in tune with our design. And here's the thing: there have been so many points in time where I've wanted something to work out one way, but then I have my plan and I surrender back into my knowing, I surrender back into my design, and it doesn't go the way I wanted it to go. It goes 10 times better. But I
Yeah.
never could have predicted it if I limited myself to the logical piece of me that's trying to self protect from doubt and fear instead of going, I'm going to follow what's aligned. And if there's a little fear and I only know the next step that's
Yeah.
aligned for me, I'm going to take the next step and then I'm going to open again and tune into my vision and go into the solidity of I am enacting this vision. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I believe.
I mean, that's the word condition, like you said, right? Like I remember there's somebody that said about like we want to see the mountain, but our eyes can't see the mountain, but we know it's eventually coming, but we keep waiting for it and we keep like thinking about what else do I need to do? What do I need to accomplish? What until we finally see it, and then that's when we feel relaxed, or that's when we kind of like take a but it's not the case. You got to surrender to the flow of the whole universe of the unknown, right?
Exactly. Yes, and I really love what you said there about the unknown because human design, it's going to take you into the unknown over and over and over. So who are you in the unknown? Are you the person who can lean in and trust that knowing within, or are you the person who goes back to the conditioning? It goes back into the force and the shoulds and the pressure and the have to. Because I have found, at least for me, in following my design, that I am a much more solid person in the unknown than I used to be when I was operating from just my logic and just the mind, because now I trust myself, I trust my path, I trust the unfolding. And most people, when they don't know about their design, they are not okay in the unknown because it's this conditioned piece within them that has to be in the mind.
Yeah, I was just thinking right now. I was like, man, when new kids are when we have children born in this world, we should just give them a pamphlet of like, here's your soul contract, here's your human design, here's the divine masculine, divine feminine, here's the spirituality. You don't have to be like your mother or your father. Don't worry, you're gonna be safe and held, and just let them out in the world make their own decisions.
It's going to be so cool. And that's something that I love is like more and more people are learning about human design, and it's so valuable for ourselves, but it's so valuable for the children being born because here's the thing, like the amount of deconditioning that I have to do, that you have to do as an adult who wasn't raised in alignment to our design, it's a lot more. But these kids coming in when their parents have done deconditioning and know their children's human design type and can foster them in a way that actually supports their path, their growth, it like the world is going to change so massively in the next few
Beautiful. It'll
generations.
be beautiful. It'll be beautiful. Just thinking about this, and I was thinking about if I was a kid and I got that, and they knew my human design, my mother, just the way they talk to you, the way to understand your bitterness, to your emotional, like making decisions because of my emotional regulatory thing, like all these like conditions things. I'm like, wow, that would have been so. But that's why we're here, right? We're the pioneers
Yes.
to do this and the front runners to do this.
And it's so cool because, and this is something that I really believe is that when somebody has the courage to go first, they lay down this energetic ley line where everybody else around them, they get to follow the path of that ley line, and it gets easier, right? This is something we were even talking about because me and my partner are moving to Costa Rica. We're the first ones to do this, but we're laying an energetic ley line that makes it easier for other people to join us. It's the same with human design. And when you have the courageousness to follow your own path, all of a sudden the people around you, they're like, hey, why aren't you following the box? Why aren't you following the conditioning? Why aren't you scared? Why are you not in logic and afraid? And you're like, I'm just following truth for me. And then all of a sudden they're gonna be able to follow truth for themselves more easily because of the people who are courageous enough to really embody that when nobody around them was embodying that.
And that's the key, right? We are at service. You, me, we're all at service. Our energy is healing. Our energy is changing. No matter what presence or what form we touch somebody in a certain way, if it's like we meet them in person, online, wherever it might be, somebody listens to this podcast. It's somebody resonates with our energy and it changes their perspective. And I've gotten so many people recently about deconstructing religion, and like I've had different religion people from all sorts of like, oh no, I'm into spirituality, I'm starting to uncover this and this and this, and I'm like, beautiful.
It's amazing. It's exactly that, because it's not even like words are not the only way. Like your courageousness, your ability to follow your design, your ability to follow your truth, it activates people, and we're all being activated energetically right now. And I that's part of the reason why I do believe we're going through like collective dark nights of the soul, and we're going through collective depressions in places, and we're going through a lot of upheaval, is because there's being so much light flooded into the collective right now that we have to look at those pieces to elevate as a consciousness. And when we allow ourselves to do that on an individual level, it starts to happen for the people around us too. And then all of a sudden, the collective consciousness has increased its light quotient. It's
Yeah,
very powerful.
because what were we made here to be separated, right? To separate ourselves because they know how powerful we are together and collective and all this.
Truly, 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 truly. And I love that you said that, because one of the things that's conditioned in us is the boxes of what we should and shouldn't do. And it all stems from the energy of separation, separation from our truth, separation from our bodies, separation from our knowingness, separation from our intuition. And I really do believe that this is our birthright, is to be connected to what is right for us. And when you reclaim that, you are sticking the stick in the ground very powerfully of saying, I am sovereign, I am part of one with all, but I'm also sovereign, and I don't subscribe to the rules and limitations of quote unquote dark forces that inhibit or just keep us from truth.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about that too when I was creating this platform and creating everything else. Because you got a lot of spiritual people that say they're spiritual, but at the same time, their actions don't match their words, right? So you always have to be careful as we get into this industry too. And I was thinking about what do I want to accomplish from this? And exactly for that is anybody that comes to us or you, me, I want to make sure I help them as best as I can, and then let them go on their journey. I don't need to have them consistently in my aura to be there, because it's not about that. I don't have the answers to all of it. I don't have the answers. You shouldn't believe just one person. It's about like getting what you need and then like a slingshot and then bye on your way.
Totally. Yes, I completely, completely agree. And it's like, when we can remove these pieces of ego or of saviorization or need of another, we actually allow ourselves to grow. And I really do see that a lot as well, where it's like sometimes where our biggest gift is also where our biggest shadow hides. And so oftentimes the more quote unquote spiritual you get, the more shadow work, and I wouldn't say oftentimes, it's every single time, the more spiritual you get, the more you have to do shadow work, because as you move through the layers of consciousness, there's different, I would call them traps of consciousness, where the ego re-evolving and the new ego identity that's built in a more elevated level of consciousness, it's stronger, right? And so shadow work is such a necessary part of this. And it's so funny because you and I both have a lot of like Scorpio energy. So we're just doing it. We're just doing the shadow work all the time. Very, very self-aware in terms of like what needs to be alchemized in order for the light to be there. But it's not just all like love and light and namaste. It's this very deep energy of like going to the depths, going to the roots, going to the shadows, deconditioning, and also namaste.
Yeah, I mean, you're very on point, and I can usually tell. I had this. I talked to somebody a little time ago, and she was a little concerned about the her roommate, and she was talking about how she was on a spiritual path, but then still told her like you should be doing this, you should be doing that, and it was very judgmental, and that's the ego. Like it never goes away. You just have to it attach exactly on point. Now that I think about it, and the ego attaches itself to a different side of you, whatever it might be, and if you don't continue to do this, you can't just drown yourself in spirituality and say this. You gotta tame that shadow.
I completely agree. And it's so crazy because it will find something to attach to, right? And that's something like there's superiority that can come on the spiritual journey of thinking we're better than everybody else, or there can be inferiority of thinking we know less than other people or we're less intuitive than other people. Both of those are the same side of an ego reaction, right? And neither one of those are truth. And so it's just really interesting to watch as you grow, to be very aware of where the ego's like, ooh, I'm better, or ooh, I'm worse, or ooh, I know more, or ooh, people need me, or whatever those things are, and continually decondition back to truth and knowingness within self.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on so much. We went from the obviously the human design aspect to the ego aspect. I love our conversation. We could be talking for hours here.
I know, it's
Um,
so good. It's so good.
it is, and I appreciate all the work that you've done and everything that you go by. So if you had a message for the audience, a takeaway, what would that be?
Oh, perfect. I remember you telling me that you were going to ask me this question. I felt so solid. And now I'm like, what do I want to
You're like,
say?
oh my God, I knew you were gonna
That's,
get that.
it's so funny. So, I mean, actually, I want to draw back to the conversation that we were having around courage, because I think that that's kind of the final message that I want to leave everybody with. And courage, it's not going to be found in the mind, it's found in the beingness and it's found in the embodiment. So, everybody here, whether you're familiar with your human design or you're looking up your human design as you listen to us, one of the things that I want you to do, I want you to look at your type, strategy, and authority, and I want you to have the courageousness to actually start to follow it. I want you to be the person who looks at fear as not the ultimate truth, because one of the things that's happening right now on the planet, I do perceive a war on human consciousness. And the way that they keep us disconnected and small is from tuning into truth. And in truth, there isn't fear there, right? And so I allow fear to exist without buying into it as the ultimate truth. It's a part of me, but it's not all of me. And so when you start to look at your human design, I want you to tune into truth that goes beyond your fear, that goes beyond your doubt, and actually tune into the truth and the essence of who you are. And when you have a desire, it is called through you because it is a glimpse into what is possible for you. And so the fears are going to be loud, the doubts are going to be loud, but I want everybody here to be so courageous that you see how loud those are, and then you trust the piece of you even if it's a whisper that says more is possible for you, that your desires are divinely guided. And when you can continue to be the person who is courageous enough to believe that, that's where you are going to see not only beautiful manifestations within your own life, but you're going to have the impact that you want to have on other people. And you're going to be the person who evolves and raises your light quotient and impacts the entire collective through that courageousness. And it does take a higher level of courage right now. Like, we are path pavers. We are the people who are saying no to what the conditioned fear narratives of society are. And to do that and to be that, we actually have to be strong in listening to ourselves, in creating the habits and doing the mindset work and doing the embodiment work to be the person who can listen to our vision and listen to our truth, because we need courageous people right now. That's my message.
Yeah, the first of all, that was a beautiful message. Second of all, I mean, you already helped me in that message as well. I've leaned more into my fear just because of our connection, literally.
That makes me
So
so happy.
I know just the little times I listen to everything, and it's just you're amazing. And how do people find you if they want to find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. It's at Christy Avis. And I am also on, I have a podcast and it's called Aligned Ascension by Christy Avis. Those are some great places to start to dive in and learn more about my work, learn more about human design, and also learn more about consciousness, because I love the conversation of consciousness.
Yeah, and I'll put the links once I post everything there, but and then I'll have your significant other, your partner over there, one on these, and hopefully you back in this, and so we can talk more into the next stages of this collectiveness.
Oh my gosh, we would absolutely love that.
Yeah,
That would be amazing. And thank you so
yeah,
much for having me on. This has just been such an amazing conversation.
of course. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
How's that? Good?
Oh my God, that was amazing. Thank
You
you
froze at
so
the last
much.
second. That's why I hesitated because it froze. Because what it does, it uploads the video